This movie does one thing that I thank it for. It's that it reminded me of my childhood. You're going into a Toys R Us. Now, if you were like me, growing up in the 2000s, going to Toys R Us was the coolest thing. Probably up there with like some other places that most kids my age would say was so cool to be at, but Toys R Us was definitely one of them. If your parents told you, hey, we're going to go there and get what you want, that meant that you were just going to buy the coolest stuff there. No matter what, you were determined, like, I'm gonna get this, and this. My parents said it was okay for me to get. As much as I know, they're probably like, oh man, they're buying this. Nowadays, I feel like Toys R Us just isn't as special anymore. And I think it's just simply because of the times we're living in. But I can thank this movie for taking me back to my youth and knowing that I do miss good old version of a Toys R Us. Through and through, I like it that way.
I need you to take the ink bomb out. If I do that, it'll blow up. Not if you do it quick. Oops.
Roofman is directed by Cianfrance with a screenplay by Cianfrance and Gunn. The film stars Tatum, Kirsten, Dunst, Mendelsohn, LaKeith, Stanfield, Juno, Melonie, Diaz, Aduba, Collias, Jimmy Yang, and Dinklage. According to Aduba's plot synopsis, a charismatic criminal, while on the run from the police, hides in a hidden space of a toy store. There, he adopts a new identity and becomes involved with an employee, beginning a relationship as unlikely as it is risky. Let's face it, films that are based on a true story aren't really 100% on the actual story. Only like the basis. If you know at the very least like what the event was, you know that something happened and it was something that was covered and that was it. And then usually Hollywood movies tends to be like, well, what if we do like this and maybe some stuff that was kind of fudge? What if we take that and just incorporate it into the movie because it would just work out that way? So whenever it says based on true story, don't really go into that notion of, oh, I'm gonna get an actual authentic version of it, because you're not. Okay, we all know this. Movies like this tend to kind of play up to the idea that that is how big it was. Some of the stuff was, but I also feel like some of it's a little bit exaggerated, if you ask me. But of course, as we all know, this movie has everything for a Hollywood version of the story, as Channing Tatum is at the forefront of it. And look, I like Channing Tatum. I think he can be a very charismatic, funny guy. But let's face it, if you take him versus the actual criminal, let me tell you, Hollywood gave you a really handsome guy to play him, because I'm not trying to shame the actual version, but you got a handsome dude to play you. So I think you could take that as a win, if you ask me. I was very interested in what this film, based on what the premise was, and seeing Tatum just having fun. For nothing else, that was what I was going for. The idea that this event that happened, I was legit curious on how it would be, even though I know the movie's not going to give me the actual full true story. But at the very least, I could see Channing Tatum having fun. At least he's having somewhat of a grand old time being in a Toy Story and just causing so much havoc and chaos along the way. After seeing it, I can say this. For as much as, yes, this is a story that we all know is exaggerated, and this guy, as much as he was charming and likable, we all know that the man is a criminal and he's just not as smart as like authorities made him out to be. But I had a really good time with this film. I understand for what I'm saying is that, well, Zach, if you're saying that the movie and what it's presenting is just bullshit, why are you still liking it? Well, I'll tell you this, although it just has some of those issues, it was just enjoyable to see Channing Tatum just having a good time on set, being this guy stuck in a Toys R Us, trying to survive and hide from the police and living off of peanut M&Ms. I went into it knowing, hey, can you at least give me something I can at least be entertained by? And through the power of Tatum and so many other factors in here, the answer is yes. I got that, and for me, that's good enough for what it is. So before going over my problems, here are the positives that I do have. The performances are entertaining. Everyone, but especially Tatum, Dunst, Stanfield, and Dinklage are enjoyable throughout, showcasing really good chemistry with one another. Channing Tatum, of course, is at the forefront of it. And yes, while I understand that this guy, the real life Jeffrey Manchester, is similar in the sense of like he was very much charming and very much concerned of others in terms of the hostile situation he is putting these people in, it still doesn't excuse the fact that this guy is a criminal. This is somebody who is not somebody I would respect, even if they're being polite to me. At the very least, I can say, like, okay, yeah, but I mean, he's still not a good guy. But Channing Tatum, this version of it, does seem like, yes, he seems like a very approachable person to talk to and to have a good conversation with and to get along with. So there is that aspect. I'm just saying, for real life, as much as Tatum is good at it, I'm still not winning over the fact that this guy is a criminal. Okay, like through and through, this man is really putting people in danger. But Tatum was winning me over at the very least. Kirsten Dunst plays a woman that Jeffrey Manchester was infatuated with and really wanted to know more about. And she was really good in the movie. She really brought that kind of normalcy to what you would think like casual person working at a Toys R Us would be. Yeah, she was very polite and very charming as well, and her and Tatum have really good chemistry with each other. It seemed like they had really good conversations with one another and some good off-screen banters with each other, so it really worked out in what this movie is supposed to be, let alone, and these two really kept the movie at least watchable. LaKeith Stanfield, for the brief moments that he's in this movie, he's really funny, he's very likable. He has some good banter with Channing Tatum in the movie as well. You could really tell how much that Channing Tatum and LaKeith Stanfield just probably had some really good, funny conversations with one another, and they really felt like really good friends in the movie. But Peter Dinklage, talk about a complete asshole. I don't know what it is. Is he just wanting to play dicks in movies nowadays? Because I just feel like that's what he wants to do. And if he wants to do that, great, because he is just such the perfect version of what you would think a boss or a manager of a store, maybe like a Toys R Us, but like anywhere, any sort of management position, you would be like, yeah, he fits the bill, because he does it pretty well and it adds to some very hilarious moments. And I respect the fact that for what Peter Dinklage wants to do, if he wants to play people like this, I mean, go for it. But I'm just saying, I really found him to be very funny in the movie. The direction is connect. Director Derek Cianfrance keeps things focused and personal on Manchester's story, making sure it stays on him only. There's never a point where it goes off into its own thing or focuses on so many other characters besides Jeffrey. It focuses solely on him. It stays on him throughout most of the movie, and it never once took issue with the idea that, like, yes, he is charming, he is likable, but I mean, he is a criminal at the end of the day. So I like that this movie doesn't like glamorize the idea. It's like, oh well, you know, he's fine, he's all right. And while I do think it doesn't go a little bit as hard as I would think a movie like this should be, I'm at least happy knowing that like they don't excuse the fact that he's not a good person. It doesn't go fully into thinking like, oh well, you should see it from his perspective that he was just misunderstood and people were treating him badly in his situation when no, he did this on his own accord. It's not like nobody influenced him to do what he wanted to do. He just did it on his own. So I'm glad that the movie was smart enough to know, hey, we're not going to indulge this guy in thinking like he's just an amazing person, because while he is charming, that doesn't excuse what he does. So I do think that Derek Cianfrance really made sure to note, like, hey, at the end of the day, this guy is a criminal. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's in jail because of the things he did. The cinematography is fluent. Cinematographer Andre Berkey keeps the film grounded by feeling small scale, keeping it consistent. There were a couple of times in this movie where we go into handheld, follow Jeffrey as he's like moving around stores in different environments, and I thought that was pretty cool. And there were a couple of times it did lend to some really hard parts of the movie where it does confront the idea of Jeffrey doing these things and hurting people. But the movie itself does look amazing. It looks great for what it's supposed to be. It doesn't try to be as glamorous as it is. It feels very much low scale, low quality in the sense of how this movie plays out. And I think that is the right approach for a movie like this, because if it had tried to be bigger, it just wouldn't have worked. I'm glad that they are able to keep it confined to being much more smaller than what a movie like this would have ended up being like. The production is well made. For a budget of $17 to $19 million, it feels right on what it needs to be. From the sets and crew work, it all worked out in the end. Because like I said, just like with the cinematography, the fact that this movie wasn't as big as it was is a good thing. Because for a story that I'm not saying nobody knew about, it's one of those things though where it's not like a nationwide or a worldwide thing everyone knew about. It was just more so like if you were around the East Coast, mainly around like Carolina, Virginia, somewhere around there, you would know about this story than most other people. Like to me, I didn't know about this stories. For this movie to really tackle this kind of local state search, I'm glad that they are able to recognize, like, okay, yes, not everyone knew about this. This was purely a small time thing, and it was conducted, but it wasn't to the point of being wide scale. So I'm glad that they are able to confine to the idea that yes, this is a very small scale type of film about a guy who hid in a toy store. And I think that is the right approach instead of trying to make it even more bigger than it seems. The writing is solid. Writers Cianfrance and Gunn pens a funny and effective script that delivers the laughs and dramatic moments. Add on the cast, you got a strong script to work with. Because if you have writing that suffers, it has to be the actors have to pretty much carry this. But if you have writing here that is working well on its own and the actors just elevate it even further, I think that's what works about it. Because when the humorous moments happen, they happen. There are a couple of moments in this movie where it made me laugh and just like rolling my eyes at the stupidity at some of the moments in this film. But I do think that Cianfrance and Gunn were able to put together a script that felt right for what it needed to be rather than being as outlandish as it should have been. But it does lend the actors a chance to take that a little bit further and add their own style to it rather than just getting a basic ass script for a movie like this and just kind of having the actors having to pull along. I'm glad that the script itself was able to be good enough to have the actors build upon that even further. The pacing and runtime is decent. Scenes would keep going and never let up. With a runtime of 2 hours and 6 minutes, it gets through. I was kind of teeter-tottering on this point, but I ultimately thought, well, you know what? It was able to, at the very least, not be as double digits as I thought it was. So, yeah, I think 2 hours and 6 minutes was substantial for what it was. I will say there are a couple of moments where it does dip a little bit in quality in certain areas, but at the very least it kept things going and never like drastically like stopped the movie for this. So I'm happy in that way. The editing is good, every cut feels right, but also blends well together, having it feel consistent as well. If you have editing that is able to flow with the cinematography, that's perfect. It felt like every moment, every cut that was made felt like it never was jarring or never precise on what it needed to be. It felt like it was all right in the moment, and it felt as if nothing was wrong in that way. It was able to be as correct as it should be. While enjoyable, there are some issues that did hold it back for me. I'm not sitting here saying that it was a terrible movie. I just think that there were some issues that I did take note that did kind of bother me, or at the very least didn't really like hit the way it should have been. Here are now the negatives. The story is generic, aside from comparing to the real story, which of course that is obvious with most true stories. It just hits kind of the check marks for what true stories would be, and it just has nothing to stand out amongst itself. While I do think that, yes, you could say, well, the idea is cool. Yeah, it was. And of course, drawing that inspiration from the real event is there. If you've seen a lot of true stories, you know that it kind of plays out exactly like how most true stories are, or like crime dramas. It kind of falls into that category of really hitting the check marks and the hallmarks of any sort of crime comedy film that you kind of come to know. And while there can be some aspects that you can say like is true, like yes, he did go onto roofs of McDonald's and he would rob them when the crew would come in the morning and get out of there as fast as possible. I do ultimately think though there are times where I'm like, I don't think it happened the way it is presented, and that's the problem. Usually true stories just don't really tell you 100% the truth. So, yeah, and the fact that at times, yes, while they do address that this guy isn't a good person, they still try to win you over with a little bit of his charisma that I applaud Channing Tatum, but I'm also not going to be persuaded into the idea that this guy is an all-around amazing person, because he's kind of reckless with what he tries to do. The music is pretty forgettable. Composer Christopher Bear creates a non-existent score that has no recognizable melody that stands out. At least the licensed music is good. At the very least, that helps it out, because yeah, the score itself, there's nothing to it. There's nothing really memorable about it in any sort of way. It just seems like there was no sort of identifiable moment in the movie where a score really hit. It just kind of felt like it was pretty much generic comedy or dramatic music moments that it just didn't really lend itself all that well too much. The narration is distracting. It felt pointless when it came up, as there could have been other ways to tell us a little bit more about Jeff rather than just constantly having this narration play out throughout most of the movie, because it just kind of comes off as being exposition. And that's usually my problem whenever it's narration, because narration kind of tends to go both ways. It could either lend itself to a movie and actually help add a little bit of complexity, or it could really ruin a movie, or rather just sour what I think they could have done with the direction that they wanted to go with. And for me, they kind of went that route where, yeah, it seemed pointless. It seemed like they had narration because they wanted to fill in who Jeff is and his own way of telling the events from his perspective, which is fine, but I just think that there's other ways of doing it rather than just constantly having a narration from him throughout most of the movie. Because of course it's explained like why he's telling it, but still it's just not really a way I would have gone about it, but that is how it is. For its shortcomings, I had a fun time watching Tatum charm his way and being hilarious to watch. It knew when to be funny and dramatic at parts, and overall, it was just a enjoyable time to see Tatum be likable in a way where, even though I'm not really saying that the real person was like this or 100% seeming like he was overall a good person, because he wasn't, Tatum himself was enjoyable enough to watch. You were at least going along with how the movie was playing out, and any joke or any dramatic part that happened fit well with what the movie was trying to be, and it was at least entertaining enough to kind of be taken aback and enjoying for what it is. I'm going to give Roofman a 7 out of 10. It's an enjoyable, fun time. Again, if you want to watch Channing Tatum just go around the Toys R Us store or interacting with some characters, you're going to get that from this movie. But if you are looking for, again, a movie that is very much a true telling of that said story, no, I would temper your expectations down and just say, hey, it's just a fun movie that just knows what it wants to be, and whether it takes some liberties with what the story was in terms of how it happened in real life, that's up to you. I'm just saying for myself, I still had a good time watching him just be as funny and as charismatic as he can. So I will be soon doing a review, hopefully, for Frankenstein. Hopefully. If not, I will explain myself for that. But hopefully I can. So yes, look forward to that review and other reviews coming soon.